Paul, come back Peter, come back Paul. I'm just being sarcastic, guys. Man found himself all the way in Belize, detained in Belize, got beaten by Belize police, have a significant other, and he's looking for love, find love, and end up being beaten people. If you haven't heard the story, you heard the story over here. Let's get into it, please, Anne. Thanks.
His arrival. She claims that.
And I was crying and crying and crying. I said, and then he said, let me see if I can talk to them and see if you can see him. Anyway, and I went in, so they let me go into the detention room with him, and then I was asking the one detention officer, who was very nice, and he said, the problem is that the accommodations aren't in his name. And I said, well, I can call these places and have them change the reservation. That's changing names on a reservation is it's not hard. So I was in the process of doing that, and then the supervisor, a woman supervisor, came in. She says, "You're out of time. This is done." Told me I had to leave the room, followed out of the room, and basically told me that I don't have any right. Are you a Belizean citizen? And I said no. Do you have papers to, are you a resident? I said, no. You have no right to invite somebody to this country. You are not Belizean. We are sending him back to his country, and you need to leave now. I said, can I say goodbye to him? She said, you need to leave right now. And that's the last time I saw Chris until last night.
They agreed for him to be held at a hotel and then sent back on Friday, January 3rd. The family retained attorney Norman Rodriguez.
Immediately he said, I just want to go home. He has a young child, I believe 3 years old, and he wanted to get back home because the purpose for which he had come to Belize was already a failed purpose. They had detained him, and I informed her of such, and we agreed. I spoke to Miss Mai when I came into the airport because I came in through Houston. And Miss Mai was very friendly and the usual Miss Mai when you meet with her. And she took me to see him immediately. I informed her what his decision was, and we agreed that she would facilitate his return to Jamaica on Friday.
Williams also booked herself on that flight out of Belize to Panama. But she says that when she got to Panama, she discovered that her brother-in-law was still being held in Belize. And this time, he had been allegedly assaulted by a police officer while in custody.
At 6:14 p.m. on Friday night or evening, I received a call from Mr. McIntyre, and he was very hysterical. He was crying, and he said that, look, I was just assaulted and beaten by a police officer. I said, I will come to see you in the morning. When I went to see him, his instructions to me was that when he spoke to Miss Mai Friday evening, she expressed to him that he had missed his plane. He said at that moment he started shouting in the airport, I want to go home, I want to go home. And a police officer came out of nowhere and just grabbed him in the shirt. These are the allegations, right? Grabbed him in his shirt such that he was choked with the way he was holding him and pulling him. He fell to the ground, and the allegation is further that the police officer slapped him in his face, and he said thumped, which I understand to be punched him in his stomach, such that he experienced severe pain on his ribs.
I was in the custom. When I went to the custom, that's the time that they told us that the plane.
This is the victim speaking.
So I started to say I want to.
Okay, so that's the victim speaking.
On Friday night, and
okay.
The plane would be missing us, the flight would miss us. So I started to say, I want to go home, I want to go home. They bring us back in the immigration room, where I stopped there. The guy pulled me on the ground, held me by my neck, pulled me on the ground, slapped me in my face, and then tugged me in my ribs.
He just attacked you without you doing anything?
No, I didn't do anything.
You did not speak in any kind of way to him?
No, I didn't offend him, I didn't offend nobody there.
So you didn't break any laws for the police to have to use force on you?
No, sir.
I got to see Chris the first time last night. I went to hug him. His ribs. He says, "You can't touch me there. It's sore." You know, I don't know how people can be treated that way. I just don't understand. I mean, he's supposed to be able to come to Belize. I invited him here. He was excited. This was a vacation. And I just said, you know, whatever. If we would have gone back on Friday, none of this would be. If they had him on that plane with me, none of this would be.
According to Rodriguez, while these immigration cases do occur frequently at the PGIA, it's rare that detainees are assaulted or brutalized upon being detained.
Do you hear what the lawyer says? All of these things happen all the time. So a black man leave all the way to go to Belize and end up getting assaulted. Do you hear what the lawyer says? These things always happen all the time. Sometimes, but it's not that every Jamaican that go there get beaten. At times they just don't want a person of color in their country. Sometimes they don't believe that a person of color can date somebody else that don't look like them. Sometimes racism has a lot to do with it, a lot of some of these things. But sometimes it's just that, you know, they feel like every Caribbean person is the same. Everybody gonna come and do something. You know, it's almost the same situation as if a Busy Signal want to go to Canada to do some shows and they turned down his visa because they're saying basically they're not sure if he's going to leave the country or not. You know what I mean? So sometimes some bad apples make it worse for some people who need the chance and can't get it. And then some people are just dead stepped in their way, biased. They don't give nobody else any chance. They think everybody's the same. Everybody's going to act the same or everybody's doing the same thing. You know what I mean? Even now with that same thing, with that Lululemon situation with the J Icon story, if you're not careful, you as a black person, by the time you go in a store, everybody's on you. By the time you look around, somebody's following you around, you be like, what the hell? You know what I mean? But if you know you're in the store, you're not stealing, who cares? You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, sometimes people do things and then it spill out on other people who are very innocent. So we're not sure how this immigration situation goes, but they don't have no right to beat this man. You already detained him. You said that the person who invited him in Belize is not a Belize citizen, so she has no right. So all you have to do is deport him back. What is the big deal? But I'm sure the man was very angry. I'm sure he was shouting, I want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go home. And like I tell a lot of people, what you could do in your yard, what you can do in your country, you can go to other people's country and do it. Sometimes, you know, people always say you do what the cowboys do, but at times you got to pick your battles because at times when you're in a country like Belize, that you don't really see so much people of your kind, you have to be very careful. You will end up dead and nothing don't come out of it. Like Spencer, who was in the States, had all of these white friends, went camping with them, went out to a cabin, I think 4 other and himself, and he ended up with 7 bullets. Okay? And when the story boiled down, you heard that he was the aggressor. He was shot in his mouth, he was shot in his buttocks, he was shot in his chest, and everybody else that was there had no shot, nothing. And they claim say he was the aggressor. So nothing but they brought that poor black man out there in the woods to hunt him down like a dog. And would they hunt a dog like that? I am not sure. And if you heard about lots of stories like that, there's lots of stories where they bring people to the woods and hunt them down like a dog. There's a movie like that too. That movie is made from a real life story. So we got to be mindful. Be careful of your surroundings when you travel. Be mindful of your behavior when you travel. Read up onto the places where you're going before you travel. Know the ins and outs of many countries that you travel. Because remember, when you're out there, you're like a lone shark. When you're out of your habitat, you are a lone shark. So just be mindful. Okay, give them no right to beat up on this young man. Give them no right to, make him bruise and everything. But I guess, some places are different. They treat black people differently. Okay, so let's get into it some more.
Makes this case far more serious than it really is.
The issue of him being refused entry, it should be a normal procedure. The immigration officer who interviews an intending visitor is to look at Section 5.1 of the Immigration Act, Chapter
Yeah.
156 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, and to see if that person falls within any of the prohibited immigrant at that point. In a case like Mr. McIntyre, Section 5.1a may apply or would possibly have applied after, that is before I found out his circumstances, which states that the person must not be at charge on public funds, or that he must show that he has enough funds to sustain himself while in Belize. That would transcend to the examination of the return ticket, the accommodation, and the amount of money that person would have in his pocket. He seemed to have had those, but he had further support from Ms. Williams, who went in there and was able to provide the documents. You heard what she said, that the port commander said certain things to her, and this is where we are. But the issue of police brutality is alive now in this matter, and I am hoping that the Commissioner of Police will act on this. He has shown that he will definitely address these issues, so I'm calling on him to address this issue and be fair on both ends as he normally is, and the police will decide on that issue of the criminal charge.
McIntyre has decided to stay in Belize until at least Friday so that he has time to file a criminal complaint against the officer that assaulted him.
Oh my.
Lanza, 7 News.
And I hear that, people. So at the end of the day, be careful. And a lot of people, again, is leaving the country and they're going down. Say, for example, you're from the States and you have an American passport and you have a Jamaican passport. A lot of people are going down on their Jamaican passport because they claim it's so easier to go through immigration, and immigration won't tell them what time to come back. But put this out there. Say, for example, something happened in the country that you're going. How would immigration know who you are? Immigration is not even going to look after you if there's a disaster happening in that country because you went down as a Jamaican, you went down as a so-and-so, you went down as so-and-so. The best thing you can do is go down on your proper documents that you're going on. The best thing you can do is always do your research before you go to a different country that you're not used to. And not only that, be in your best behavior and your P's and Q's and be very extra careful. Not only that, always remember insurance, because you can end up sick, end up in the hospital and stuff like that. If you have insurance from work, a lot of insurance that from work extend to international insurance. But if you don't have that one, make sure you add the little bit of insurance on your ticket, because God forbid you're sick, God forbid anything happen, and you're going to end up owing all of this money. And you have many countries that you go, if you don't have the money, they're not looking after you. So always remember those tips when you go on vacation. Peace and love. Today is Sunday. I'm going to finish what I have to do because I got to head out. Peace and love until the next content.